Okay, Oscar fans, we've got the ultimate lineup of Oscarologists here to crystal ball the nominations on the eve of their announcement. We have the great Ann Thompson from Indiewire and the super great, or equally great, right, Pete Hammond from Deadline. I got to stop making comparative analysis here. And we want to make give a special ode to our guest here, to Wilson Morales of blackfilmandtv.com, who has been making predictions of Gold Derby for years, but recently has been kicking everybody's butt, winning this non-stop sweep that I imagine Joy Sang from Gold Derby, who's usually doing that to us, has got a voodoo doll of you at home that she's stitching and plunging scissors into. What's your secret, Wilson? Talk to us.
There's no secret. I think, we all watch the same amount of movies, and it's a matter of at some point or another, we know who the top three are going to be, and then it's a matter of sticking with that decision. So that way, when the choices are made by either guild, we land on top. I don't expect to win all the time, but I'd like to think I could be top four.
Well, all right.
That's why.
But Tom, you went and took all of our stats for years and made us lined us all up. That was humiliating. I came in okay, but when I did my picks this year, my nominations picks, I was really sweating it. You're on the record here at Gold Derby.
Yeah, I know. Somebody took, I haven't read the link yet. Somebody sent it to me. Some publication, not a big note, has taken the experts, all of our predictions and stuff, and made comparative analysis through the years. I'm too afraid to open.
No, I don't want to look at that.
No, I don't either.
Did you look at it? And I saw it yesterday. Somebody had sent me that. Somebody literally looked at all of our stats over the years and said, this is how you rank in the last 5 years.
Really?
Oh, how each of us rank against each other, and we're all either 77 or 78%, right? Something like that.
Yeah.
That's pretty good.
No, I mean, every year I will have some fabulous day where I do really well, and then I'll bomb at the next one. Very well with the Bassett, for example.
That's the feel. I don't expect to win, but I don't want to bomb out. You want to go from first to last.
So Pete, you've won many times as the number one prognosticator Gold Derby. What's your secret?
I have no secret. I go on vibes. I talk to people. I just get a vibe, and sometimes I luck out, over the years. If we're going to talk about the past, Sandra Bullock was one that I just.
But you were on to Sandra Bullock in November, I remember. You were way ahead of everybody.
Yeah, I actually saw that movie way before it opened, and they just wanted an opinion, and I said, "You want my opinion? I think you don't know what you have here," because they were going to throw it away, and to me it was just like, this is gonna work, and and it did. Sometimes you do that. Somebody though at the time, who shall be nameless, nobody on this Zoom, said, "Oh, Pete Hammond, he throws everything against the wall, and something finally stuck." Whoa. You just get a vibe sometimes, and every now and then they stick, and sometimes they don't. But that's it. It's a guessing game.
And it used to be pre-COVID, we would be at more events all the time, and you would just be next to Academy members and you'd catch the buzz more. And I would remember the Spotlight year, for example. And Anne called it early on that year. And I was really proud of you, Anne, but a lot of us didn't. And
you had to go on your gut on that one and listening to people. That wasn't one where the stats were going to tell you. I find it so interesting. There's so many of these sites now, the Eric Andersons and Matt Neglias of the world, who really rely on stats. They really look at the stats to tell them everything. Of course, it's helpful, but it's not everything.
It can be, but stats are, you have to throw them out after a while. Spotlight's a perfect example. It was going to be, against the stats. if it won. It was going back to, you know, The Greatest Show on Earth. How many movies win Best Picture with just one other award? That doesn't happen, but it happened there. So you have a new stat to go by, you know, and you have to go by your gut, and then you can look at the stats, and they can sometimes throw you off. It's often
Power of
strange.
the Dog would have been the front runner, and it wasn't, you know.
I remember, and you and I wrote an article at the same time with the same thought, which was how, oops, sorry for the sirens here. This is Beverly Hills, and for somebody's being naughty out there. So
I normally would have those sirens.
they're coming to get me, right? We both wrote an article at the same time about how the longest movie used to win. Remember, we both did times, and then the movie with the most nominations used to win, and there used to be picture and director always lined up, and all these things that are gone now that we can't. It used to be, I'll give you a good example, is it used to be that beautiful young women would win, you know, Juliette Binoche or something, and pull off upsets, but the handsome men would never win, and we came up with a name for it at Gold Derby, Slap the Stud, you know, and you could go through Brad Pitt and Leo DiCaprio and blah, blah, blah. And in the old days, Paul Newman, you know, finally just gave up even when he knew he was going to win for The Color of Money, and said, he gave a quote to the Associated Press and said, you know, it's like romance. If you've been chasing a woman for so long and she gives you no attention, you just give up. And so, whoa, and that's why he wouldn't go to the ceremony that year. But there are no rules now, and now there's a new academy and a new world, and kind of bigger thinking and more inclusive thinking, and it's fascinating. But we still see evidence of our race. Like we were talking just before coming on the air, and I'd like Anne to explain this. We're seeing a surge now for All Quiet on the Western Front. And it wasn't there 3 weeks ago. I didn't detect it.
I called All Quiet on the Western Front as the front runner for the international feature film a long time ago. Just as soon as I saw it, I told Netflix, this is your movie. This is the movie that's going to do really well. Forget about Glass Onion and Bardo and all. Yeah, we were talking about that earlier with Wilson. It is an incredible World War I movie with all the bells and whistles that you would want, makeup and hair and production design and cinematography. Just everything is great. And then in the shortlist turned up, and there were 5 categories represented for this film, the top number. And I that showed us, because one of the things that happens if you're on the shortlist, all those branches have to watch the movie.
Yeah.
So suddenly more people are going to see this movie. And so it's, as Pete was saying earlier, it's playing really well with the international branch, but other branches are seeing it too. So now that the BAFTAs have given it 14 nominations ahead of every other movie, we can expect it to break into Best Picture and get some categories.
Yeah, no question. You know, I have a friend in the director's branch who always gets it right. He just always gets it right when I talk to him. And he told me a long time ago, this was his favorite film of the year. And I know that all these different branches are looking at, because it's a filmmaker's movie. And that's what you're dealing with once you get to the Academy. You're dealing with the peers. And it's one that I haven't heard a negative thing on all along. I was waiting for the short list. I was actually going to write an article. I said, this is the movie that's going to break out, but I wanted to see if it really would. And the short list was going to give us an indication, which it did. And immediately that became my lead in my story about the short list. It wasn't like boom, boom, boom. It was All Quiet on the Western Front and the first 2 paragraphs, because it just seemed like if you talk to the members, these are the people voting and what they're doing. And I'll tell you the other movie that I hear over and over, it may not be a bunch of number 1s, but it's going to be a lot of number 2s, is Top Gun Maverick. I don't run into anybody that doesn't say it. I ran into Irwin Winkler yesterday somewhere, the producer, and he said, you know, he really likes Tar, but he said, you know, this movie that is really great is Top Gun. I go, yeah, I know, I've heard of it. But
I'm glad that the scripters gave it adapted screenplay. That was
there you go. Well, you're on that.
I've been
committee.
Pushing for the screenplay from the beginning, because how do you have that movie without the screenplay?
Well, I agree. I voted in the Writers Guild Awards already, and I voted for one of my nominations in adapted screenplay. No question about it, Top Gun, And normally you would say, really? Okay, but no, it's like, it's very important.
That's what they had to nail before any of the rest of it was going to work.
Yeah,
But at
definitely.
the same time, we all knew that like a movie that makes 1.4 and basically save theaters worldwide had to be recognized by being in a race. Whether it wins or not, it's a different story, but you have to recognize it for what it did for theaters, keeping them alive. And especially when you have some studios that have a small window now where, a movie like Megan can do really well, but they have a short window at the theaters.
That's right. Yeah, yeah. And, give all credit to Tom Cruise for resisting everything on that movie through the whole pandemic. They had like 5 different release dates.
They
But he
just held
wanted
on. They held on for dear life, and it all paid off in the end.
It did.
Let me give everybody the breakdown of the current odds of the experts at Gold Derby. We're seeing these are like only 2 or 3 days old. We're all changing our predictions all the time, which is one of the great things about this site. But the technology of it is that we get to change our mind as soon as we want. But these trends we're talking about are true. You would never imagine a big commercial film like Top Gun being in the top 5 at the Oscars, but among the experts, it's in 3rd place. So we have the current rundown is Everything Everywhere All at Once at number 1. The Fabelmans is still holding on, according to the critics. It's got 4 votes. We have about 30 predictors. Then Top Gun with 6 people predicting it, and then we've got Banshees of Inisherin is, I think, overperforming. It's interesting that it is. Then Tar, then Elvis, then Avatar, then Women Talking, then number 9 is All Quiet on the Western Front. And if what Pete and Ann are saying, and they're right, and Wilson, is that this is kind of a little delayed reaction here as we change our predictions, but we're going to be seeing that moving up now.
And what's in 10th place?
In 10th place is The Whale, and then The Glass Onion.
Is The Whale?
The Whale did very well at BAFTA. Pete Wilson, why did The Whale do so well at BAFTA? Explain this to me. It's not even British.
Yeah.
Why did it do so much better than Women Talking? What's wrong with Women Talking, and what's right with The Whale?
Well, the title.
Because I prefer Women Talking to The Whale.
the title of Women Talking is the problem.
I agree.
It's what you're all afraid of.
I know. I saw it at Telluride and I was in tears. I thought it was a friggin' brilliant movie. I sat with Sarah Polley at the Palm Springs Awards recently, and she got an award there, which is nice. She got an award from Critics' Choice too that wasn't on the air. All the breaks there.
Adapted screenplay. Yeah.
She didn't get nominated at the DGA, but she could have. I don't really know. I think it's the title. But
I have a theory that people think it's a spinach movie and they just don't.
Yes.
Especially
totally.
Men. That it's a feminist spinach movie and they don't want to see it. Whereas The Whale appeals to them for some reason.
And interesting enough, they both have one setting. One is the barn,
they're in one room.
And one is the room. And I think with The Whale, you have a couple of familiar faces. With Women Talking, outside of 3 of them, you don't know the rest of the cast. And
right.
So when they're not favoring well in the actors branch, it's because they're beating each other up. Who do you vote for? You don't know who's lead.
Ensemble. It did get ensemble.
Well, but the Oscars don't have ensemble and I think they should have actually. They don't have to give them all Oscars. They can give them a special kind of thing they can make up or something if they want to do that. But they should have that ensemble. It would help the Oscar show. And Women Talking is tailor-made for ensemble. It just is truly an ensemble. It's not a bunch of different actors just in the same movie.
Whereas The Whale is much smaller scale, which is probably
but The Whale is also actor-centric. I mean, you not only have him, you have these 3 great performances from the female co-stars. Hong Chow, who's getting recognition now in awards, and she should. But Samantha Morton and Sadie Sink, I thought was incredible in it. So I think it's actor-driven. The actors are the biggest branches in most places. So I don't know. I don't know why they liked it in England as much, to answer your question, and you never know. how something's going to play. But
But then it's also a question of how well has Darren Aronofsky done in England? You know, did he do well with Black Swan? Did he do well with
He did.
The Mickey Rourke film? You know,
The
he has a
Wrestler.
traction.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah,
you
so
know,
he has a track record.
A24 is looking at this as an audience movie now. They're looking at the box office numbers, which for a little independent kind of movie, art house type movie, if you want to call it, is playing better with the audience than it did with the critics. It came out of Venice with a lot of criticism from critics for casting him. You know, the interesting thing is I was talking to James Corden, and he said, what have you seen that's good? And I mentioned The Whale, and he said, you know, I almost did that movie. I was attached to it. I was going to play that when Tom Ford was the director. And I asked Darren Aronofsky about that, and he said 100% true story. Tom Ford just wanted a little more control and dropped out, and so did Corden. So Corden fell away from it. Corden thinks now he's a little too young to have played it. I don't know about that, but it was interesting, you know, and George Clooney was attached as a producer with The Whale, and he insisted on finding a real 600-pound actor to play it. And that became problematic on so many levels that didn't work out. So, you know, it's all fate, the way it came together, but it's playing well, you know, comparatively for that type of movie at the box office, doing very well. And they you know, credit the audience for discovering it, not
10.7 million, which isn't bad.
They credit A24 for not putting it on streaming services.
Well, yeah.
And Brendan Fraser's acceptance speeches, like the Critics' Choice, were just the highlights. It
likes to cry.
Yeah, and we love award shows because it gives us, it's Hollywood without the script, right? So these actors are up there on their own, and he's having such a roaring comeback, and you're kind of cheering him on so many levels. It's you know, Peter Bart was used to, as many of you guys even have often said, you know, it's the narrative behind the nominee and the candidate that counts so much.
Absolutely.
It wasn't really like the Avatar versus Hurt Locker. It was you were rooting for one of the other couple involved in a failed marriage, either Catherine Bigelow, and you could make history and finally give a woman Best Director, or you could go with the arrogant king of the world. So the Oscars are the inner family of Hollywood, and the fun of watching the show, of course, is that we get to take a peek. Now,
I think what will be interesting to watch is Everything Everywhere All at Once at the Oscars, because most of these people are now getting all the hype. It's winning all these awards. Everyone's talking about it. It's been around for since last spring. And I don't think a whole lot of Academy members may have seen it in the numbers that critics and other groups that are giving it all these awards did. And now they're watching it, and they're mostly watching it on a digital platform. And that movie is so easy to turn off if you're not like invested in a theater, where I saw it, and it was a packed theater after it opened, actually. And it was like amazing to watch. But I don't know that happens with Academy members at home. I've heard stories of them, some of them not getting through it. So
and it's a, you know, this chaotic comedy with a multiverse and floppy hot dog fingers just may not be their idea of the ideal Best Picture. The more conservative mainstream members of the Academy, there is an enormous positive surge going for this movie. If you were at the Critics' Choice, you felt it in the room, the way you felt it with Coda, the way you felt it with Parasite. So it's probably going all the way. It's just that Pete's right. There are a lot of members of the Academy who aren't going to get this movie.
Yeah. I've always said there's always a turtle in the race. You know, there's always the Frontrunner, which was the Fabelmans, and then look behind you, who's rising up. Last year it was Coda, then Power the Dog. You know, it's always, then the question is, well, for a movie like Everything, like you said, you know, it doesn't fare well when you're watching on TV, because you're going to get confused, you're going to get lost, you know, you're not going to enjoy the cinematography of it when you're watching it on a big screen. And then you're probably going to have to cheat and go to Wikipedia and go, what's the story about again?
Yeah.
I tried to tell somebody what the movie was about, and I failed miserably.
It is very hard to describe that movie. And some people say, you know, I saw it again, and it was better the second time. I mean, they really are trying, like it's homework for some people.
And it is,
That's
though,
right.
but
But the thing about the Fabelmans is that from the beginning, it's like a movie I like and admire, and of course I love Spielberg, and I love the origin myth, and I love especially the story about him and his mother. And I do hope Michelle Williams gets nominated in Best Actress, where she belongs. But I do believe that she's the protagonist. She is the
she
protagonist.
is. But in terms
She
of
is the
Oscar
star.
strategy, you know,
But I know. But the question there is, a lot of people find the Fabelmans flat and not exciting, and they're not rooting for it. And it's just an interesting situation.
I don't know why.
Looks
I think
like
it's
a Best Picture movie.
such a good film. You know, it's always, as Wilson said, you just don't want to be the front runner early on. You know, it's a jinx. Terry Press, who's working on that campaign, has been through it many times.
Lincoln.
With Saving Private Ryan, with Dreamgirls and other things. She's got to be just like so frustrated. You know, you don't want to be that front runner. It's a killer. It was right out of Toronto. It wins the People's Choice.
That's
They're following a trajectory that Green Book, which Spielberg produced, you know, followed, allowed him to go to a film festival for the first time. And it's a damn good movie. It really is
fantastic. And also,
it was his first Toronto. He's been to other film festivals.
Really, I didn't know that.
Right. He said he'd never done a film festival before.
That's not true. He's
Well,
been.
you know.
I remember him at AFI Fest. You know, he's done film festivals.
Apparently, he doesn't remember.
But the Fabelmans, you know, that Spielberg is notoriously so kind of withdrawn and shy. He's not one of these bombastic filmmakers, grandstanding all the time. And so this quiet, withdrawn superhero director of our era tells his story. And it's so heartbreaking and so well made. And I was so moved by it. I was thinking, what can beat this after I just seen it too? I was just deeply moved. So this is Hollywood voting on itself, right? What the Oscars do is they tell us who's in, who's out. The year of Master and Commander, that was, everybody got nominated in that movie except the Master and Commander, Russell Crowe, because, and he hasn't been nominated since. And they tell us what the inner Hollywood industry is thinking of itself. And so here's a fascinating example, Fabelmans. Spielberg, this master, gives us this fantastic film about his vulnerable growing up and the story of his family. And he's honest, and he, as Anne says, how he waited for the mother backstory. He waited for her to pass before he kind of told the story, even though she was encouraging him to do this. When you add that element that he's finally let us in, it means a lot more. It's like what Peter Barton, everybody used to say. Again, the person behind the movie often matters, you know, more. That's like Scorsese winning for The Departed. It often matters more, but
I'd give him the edge in director.
Yeah, and that's where it's
would too. I think they may just break it out and say this is a director's thing, and that could happen, and you could definitely see that split again this year. Totally. I think what happened with Fabelmans is it opened and it didn't do well. And it started getting headlines that said that. And I was kind of shocked. Wow, they're not going to see the Fabelmans. They're not going to see Spielberg's movie. Then it's on, you know, VOD right away, which is shocking for a Spielberg movie to suddenly do that, except he had to agree to that, and he knows the realities of things here. And I think that kind of press that was happening.
It made money there, though. It's PVOD, and that's the policy at Universal. 3 weeks.
Right.
Yes, yeah. I mentioned Megan, like, you know,
even if you're Spielberg, but I think if Spielberg had not agreed to it, they would have just, like, you know, bitten the bullet and gone on and played it out the way he wanted. But he agreed. You know, he knows, and he wants audiences to see it.
What do you make of him not getting a BAFTA nomination?
You know, I don't get the converse of what Anne was saying about The Whale with the Brits. I don't get why they didn't like the Fabelmans at all. I mean, what is it about that movie that doesn't appeal to BAFTA? It only got a screenplay nomination.
That's it. One nomination for Tony Kushner.
Not even Michelle Williams. And we can argue all we want about her decision to go and lead. And obviously, we wouldn't be like handing the Oscar to Angela Bassett so easily if Michelle Williams was in the supporting race too.
She felt so strongly that she was the lead and that she was number one on the call sheet and that she was the star of the movie, that she just didn't want to accept supporting actress status. And if that's how she feels, I respect that.
Well, it's up to the actors to decide that. And, that's an honest thing. But I think some of them may think she's supporting too, because if you look at that movie, it's the kid who's the lead and it's his story, but it is so his story with his mother here. If Patricia Neal can win Best Actress for HUD, which really is a supporting role, and Susan Sarandon can vote for herself for supporting actress as part of a campaign for Atlantic City and get nominated for Best Actress. It's the actors who look at these.
The Reader is the other case with Kate Winslet, where they went against
Kate Winslet too. She had two movies that year, but it's kind of wild.
The fact that she didn't get nominated for a SAG and the fact that she did not get nominated for BAFTA has opened up the gates for a possibility of someone getting in for Best Actress.
Andrea Riceborough, man, she's got
I don't believe that for a second, but I do think that Danielle Deadwyler gets in.
Deadwyler, I hope
Danielle's in. I think Danielle is in, but Andrea would be shocking in the world if she gets in.
Well, you need 218 votes if all 1,302 actors in the branch vote, which obviously they won't, so the numbers will go down. How many does she have? Some people are counting basically on this little guerrilla campaign here, and those are votes. Those are definitely people engaged in this campaign. So, stranger things have happened.
Hey, I said to Tom the other day, the fact that you got Colin Farrell mentioning her name when he's on the platform during the Golden Globes before they voted, and then you have Cate Blanchett doing the same thing at the Critics' Choice during the voting period. What bigger platform do you need? Forget the ad, you can get the two biggest stars.
People to have actually found the movie,
heard
of the movie, know the title of the movie, see the movie. This is the problem.
All right, let me give the rundown for Best Actress. This is so fascinating, this race, and how it's changed over the last several months. Cate Blanchett remains in front for Tar, and Michelle Yeoh, which I found absolutely fascinating at the Critics' Choice. That movie won everything except her, the poor dear, but she's a big there's a big push for her, of course, since she's in the Oscar, the front runner for Best Picture. And then Danielle Deadwyler for Till was one of the most profoundly moving performances that was deeply felt. I was so moved by it. And then Viola Davis for The Woman King. Now, going back to something we said earlier about the category strategy, the year of Fences, she had won Best Lead Actress at the Tony Award for Fences.
And she went supporting.
And then she was forced to go into supporting, and she didn't want to, just like Brad Pitt would not go. But finally, when they were forced to see predictions like from all of us and others that they were smart enough to drop the supporting in terms of strategy, and they won. So, but here she's clearly the lead. She's at number 4. Michelle Williams is in number 5 among the experts for Fabelmans. I'm rooting for her. And then you've got Anna de Maris for Blonde, and then a movie and a performance. I loved Olivia Colman in Empire of Light, and then Vicky Krieps, etc. So who wants to sound off first?
I don't think Olivia Colman's going to get nominated for this movie. They just aren't going for Empire of Light. And that's
maybe Roger Deakins. It would be the long
It'll be Roger Deakins because it's a good job too, but he's Roger Deakins. He's like Diane Warren. They love him.
They love him now.
Initially, when I saw the movie, I said, I didn't care for the movie, but because she's on this Sally Field trip where they like her, and that likability can propel her to get nominated, So like when she won, I think the Emmy, her last Emmy, she wasn't the favorite. I think it was her co-star who was the favorite to win the Emmy, and Olivia Colman won. And I go, the girl's unbeatable right now. So like if she gets in, it's because they like her. So you can never count her out, even though the film is not that favorite by a lot of people. You could never count her out, which is
Yeah,
why she's
and
so high.
actors, actors, let's look at Anna de Armas in Blonde playing Marilyn Monroe. They are suckers for these playing real life. I think for the first time I've written this, we're finally going to have Elvis Presley and Marilyn Monroe at the Oscars. In their real life, they never got nominated, but take an actor who plays them, you'll have maybe both of them.
I think she's in a terrible movie that people really disliked.
Yeah, but
which is the
she
case
acts
that if
just like Marilyn Monroe, and she's very good in it.
She is good in it, and I don't argue with that, but it hurts her. You can survive a bad movie, but it doesn't help you.
No.
Which is
Michelle
the
Williams
case that
won the Golden Globe for My Week with Marilyn White playing for Jane.
Michelle Williams has played Marilyn. Yeah, that's right, and been nominated for that. So it wouldn't surprise me to see Anna de Armas sneak in, but it's such a tricky category with all this stuff going on. So it's kind of weird.
So who's really out front to win here?
Cate Blanchett, I think.
It's the only win for Tar. That's the thing,
Well, that or music score.
Yeah.
It's ineligible for music score.
Tar,
it won't be music.
Godnaughter is eligible for women talking, but not Tar.
Not Tar.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
But she won at the Critics' Choice Awards. Anyway.
She won that because they're not music branch members who count every piece of original music versus sourced music, which in this case was a lot of classical music. So it's ineligible.
What about Michelle Yeoh? If there is this everything all at once,
it's possible.
She could
I
carry.
think it's a very close race because here's why. I always cite this interview that I watched between the Variety interview between Cate Blanchett and Michelle Yeoh, and Blanchett was honoring Yeoh during that interview, and Yeoh was more compelling. She had a story to tell. Her narrative, talk about narrative, is that she had to struggle for her entire career. Where if you look at someone like Cate Blanchett, she had everything handed to her really because she was the best, and she's already won twice. I actually would love Yeoh to win, but you can see that there's a lot of people going for Cate Blanchett.
Yeah, I think that's probably the case with the Academy overall voting in it as well. And it depends how enthusiastic they are for everything everywhere, as opposed to all these other groups. I too, Tom, was a little surprised. I thought by the time we got to actress, and I was sitting at Cate Blanchett's table, and I'm going, this could get grim really fast because
I had Viola Davis.
This is suddenly sweeping here, and why not sweep in Michelle Yeoh? I thought it probably could have happened, but it didn't. So
I'm glad she had her Golden Globes moment, and they were in separate categories.
Yes,
that if Viola Davis gets nominated, it's her third try in the Best Actress category. I wonder how much sentiment will be to get her to win. She can't win it. I don't think she could win it this year, but I'm sure there's going to be some growing vote that she'll split her votes with Danielle if both of them are nominated.
Oh, I see. Do you think Danielle could win, Wilson?
What'd you say?
Do you think Danielle could win for Till?
It's good enough that she's being talked about and she's in the race. It's very hard for a newcomer like Danielle to win, or a newcomer in that category. The last one I would say was probably Brie Larson, if you call her a newcomer, and you think before that was the deaf from Children of a Lesser God. Mary Matlin. So look how rare it is for a new one. Now you can say Brie Larson was a newcomer because prior to that, all she had was Short Term 12. And that was relatively Room. When you think about it now, it was a relatively small film.
Yeah, the difference is it was nominated for Best Picture, and Till won't be most likely nominated for Best Picture. It'll probably be the only nomination if it gets it for her, and she'll be going against Tar, which will be up for Best Picture with Cate Blanchett, and Everything, which will be up for Best Picture with Michelle Yeoh. Much stronger platform for the
Fabelmans if Michelle
Fabelmans
gets in.
Yeah, so it's a much stronger platform.
Also, I don't think that many people saw Till.
Right, right.
Yeah, and that's the
the other
problem.
thing.
And they're not, they're going to see these other performers because they're nominated in so many other categories, including Best Picture.
Although it did do better at the box office than I thought it would.
Yeah.
So
I
it
think it's
did
a
get some
contender for
exposure
costumes
there.
too. The costumes are just outstanding. Let's talk Best Actor here now. This has gone back and forth and up and down. Currently, the odds among the experts at Gold Derby have Brendan Fraser out front, Colin Farrell, and then Austin Butler, Bill Nighy for Living, and Paul Mescal for After Sun, which is,
I don't get that one, but
he's rising out of nowhere suddenly.
I'll give you that one when the time comes.
And then Tom Cruise is that's our top 6. Who wants to pipe in here?
Well,
I'll take it. I think.
Oh, you go ahead, Wilson. Go ahead.
I was gonna say, I think it's been a 3-way battle between Brendan, Colin, and Austin. Brendan with a big enough lead because he's been winning a lot of these categories and having emotional speeches. Then Colin, and then Austin. I guess I'm not sure how much of an impact the Golden Globes had, but he was able to be on a big screen where a lot of people can see him. And Elvis is starting to pick up like wine, over time. And then I think Bill Nighy is more like the sentiment folk, but I don't think enough people have seen that movie. And I think Tom Cruise, that if he started showing up to some of these, for your consideration screenings, can leapfrog if he really wants it. But so he's not showing up. He could get in as the 5th nominee, but I don't think anybody sees him winning.
he's making movies. He's making Mission Impossible. He's not here, but he's not the type that's going to go out and do that. He's just not. He's the producer of the movie. He'll be nominated for that. I think he should be nominated for Best Actor. I think taking a role 36 years later and making it even better is a much harder thing to do. Paul Newman did it with Eddie Felson with The Hustler, and then 25 years later, whatever it was, with Color of Money. This is even longer span. And, and Tom Cruise is the glue between those two because he co-starred with Paul Newman when he finally won that Oscar.
The thing about the role that he plays, he's in a sequel and he's playing Tom Cruise. He's playing himself. He's playing this movie star. He doesn't show that. I think he's great in the movie, by the way, but he doesn't stretch in the way that actors like to see people stretch. The thing about Brendan Fraser, it's linked to the makeup and the hair. It's the Gary Oldman
That's true.
thing.
That's a good point, isn't it?
It's a thing, and it's this huge comeback narrative and the emotions that you mentioned, Wilson. And then I'm rooting for Colin Farrell. I think he surprised people. His performance was unexpected. He was incredibly moving. This could be the big win for Banshees of Inisherin, which does have a lot of support. It's one of the top 3 movies.
Plus, Colin Farrell was great in The Batman as the Penguin,
as well,
and
which is up for makeup
in 13 Lives this year. He's in 3 major movies that have been campaigned in various ways across these branches. So people are noticing Colin Farrell, and he's so good with his speeches. He's so good in doing Q&As. He's just a charming guy, really articulate, and he's there. Brendan's the comeback story. Austin Butler, however, is playing the guy we all know and the one they just gravitate towards.
Well, he's a movie star now, and he has arrived, and I've been charmed by him too.
He's really working it too.
He's really lovely. He's lovely, but he's new. He's young. He's got a whole career ahead of him. This could be Colin's best shot. This could it's definitely Brendan Fraser's best shot.
Well, I have 2 words for you: Rami Malek.
Thank you. I was thinking the same thing.
Yeah. Well, you got to remember, Rami Malek had already been an Emmy Award winner because he won for Mr. Robot. Sometimes when you walk into the Oscars, already a winner somewhere else, like Cynthia Erivo did when she got nominated, and she was already a Tony Award winner and a Grammy winner. Those are some points that come with you. So Rami Malek wasn't so much of a new guy. He was already known in circuits because he had already won an Emmy and he was nominated a couple of times.
Well,
this is an interesting case, though, because I think I have it up for like 8 nominations or something.
It certainly could be.
It's really strong through all the categories.
Yeah.
Its support is wide. So it's possible. I just don't. I think everybody's going to assume that Austin Butler has more and more shots at an Oscar later on.
Here's the question.
all of these nominees and winners, so many of them who incorporate music into their performance. Renee Zellweger's Judy Garland and Rami, etc. It really helps. And the fact that Austin did what he sang the early Elvis songs for real, right? And then they used the real Elvis recordings later. And it is a new rising star. And now they are embracing newcomers with this bigger, wider academy. And people love the movie, and it's such a powerhouse performance. And that music element just seems to help.
Could be, I mean, definitely. But Bill Nighy, he sings in Living. Does that count for him?
He's going to do well at the BAFTAs.
Oh, yeah.
This is another guy who's not a comeback like Brendan, but way overdue for recognition.
Yeah.
But they may feel the nomination is it, because I agree with Wilson. I don't think a whole lot have seen the movie. So
there's a lot of affection and he's beloved. He is beloved.
I don't get the Paul Mescal thing on After Sun.
Paul Mescal thing is that After Sun has just been raved about. It's very much of an indie thing. I saw it at Cannes. It's a very small discovery British film, but Paul Mescal is extraordinary in it, and I believe that the actors branch checked that one out to see Paul Mescal, who's
it's
killing it in England
right now.
Streetcar Named Desire.
That just came out though while voting was going on. I don't think
right.
they knew he was killing it in England until a couple of days.
No, but it was right at the right time.
It could be, if they're paying that kind of attention. But yeah.
I would say outside of Brendan, Austin, and Colin, ABC actually, you could make a case that there's 2 slots open, because if not enough people saw Bill Nighy in Living, his slot is not guaranteed, which makes it a case of like you have 2 slots there. It's like, and I think the critics are the ones that say, oh, Bill Nighy, because when people are voting, for those who don't get enough to the time to see the movies, they're looking to see what are we writing. When you still Bill Nighy, they're like, okay, let's just check him in. And then
that's the 5th slot.
Yeah.
That's the thing.
It's not Hugh Jackman, because it started out, we were thinking Hugh Jackman, but it got 40% on Rotten Tomatoes. The critics didn't fall for it. He's been in New York on stage in The Music Man, not really out here charming voters and doing his thing.
They don't like the movie. The Sun
and they just don't. They don't like the movie. And they see it. Look, I moderated an Academy screening, the official Academy screening, that had like 50 people there on a Sunday night, and I don't think that many stayed for the Q&A. He wasn't there, but it was Laura Dern and all these people. Andrew Garfield was there, a handful of people, and it was just embarrassing in a 1,000-seat theater that the Academy doesn't come out and show up, enough for these things, even with a Q&A attached. But I don't think they saw the movie really. It just opening finally. For the public now.
What do you make of Tom Hanks? I've seen him do a lot.
I don't know that they've seen it. I'd put him in Man Called Otto. I think it's too late. I think it's too late for that movie. Agreed. But
But here's the case. Look at last year, Belfast. A lot of us had Catriona Balfe in. We thought she was a shoo-in.
I did not think so.
And we thought, according to what I was reading, everybody thought she was a shoo-in, but and no one had Judi Dench. Judi Dench, but she was the one that got the nomination.
But she's Judi Dench.
She is Judi Dench. It makes you wonder that if they didn't see the movie, but they know the name, they'll vote her in.
Maybe, I'll say this for Man Called Otto, which I loved. It got really nice headlines while the voting was going on, bringing back the adult audience, surprise hit.
Doing well at the box office.
Doing well. That can go if they saw it, which I don't know. I had to ask somebody if it was even on the digital platform. I don't know.
My argument about Tom Hanks is that when he gives the performance of his life, and it's the best thing he's done in years, he doesn't get nominated.
Right.
He keeps getting overlooked.
Yeah.
Yes.
Well, I'm not crying tears for Tom Hanks, who can go home and look at his 2 back-to-back Oscars.
From
but
20
still,
years
that was almost 30 years ago. 30
Yeah.
years ago, he's still performing at a high level.
Yes, he
though,
is.
but he's been an officer of the Academy, and he's been on the board, and usually that helps. So he's been part of that inner club, and it doesn't seem to translate for him.
Well, I think they
People
take him
just
for
take him
granted.
for granted.
Yeah. Exactly. Stereo here.
Great minds.
All right, let's talk about this supporting actress race where we're seeing Angela Bassett rise, and it's a glorious thing but it's a big commercial movie, of course, Black Panther. Right behind her at the Gold Derby odds is a Carrie Condon for Banshees, and they're like neck and neck. And then there's Jamie Lee Curtis, and then with her hot dog fingers. And then there's Hong Chow for The Whale, Stephanie, help me with her name.
Sure.
Okay, from Everything Everywhere, and then Dolly DeLeon from Triangle.
I love her. I love Dolly DeLeon. I hope there's a spot for her in this. And
then
race.
Jessie Buckley is in 7th place with Women Talking. Who wants to start first here? I think it's Regina.
Hello, Dolly DeLeon. You know, she's so deserved. I saw that movie at Cannes, and I said, now there's a certain supporting nomination, and it's not, but she's in it. But I don't know. I don't know how many have seen it, in the actors branch. We'll see. It's Jamie Lee Curtis is beloved in Hollywood. She's never been nominated. The daughter of 2 big movie stars. Each one of them got their Oscar nomination and lost. That will happen to their daughter.
Carrying on the legacy. But Angela Bassett is a legacy thing. It isn't just a Marvel movie. People are saying, how could you nominate someone in a Marvel movie? Give me a break. Black Panther, Wakanda Forever. She's fantastic in it. She's been fantastic for decades. She hasn't been up on a stage winning an award since 1994. Let's go for it.
Yeah, at the end of the day, I always said this was the toughest category because you had a legitimate 10 to 15 actresses. When you think about, early on, you have the women from Women Talking. You've got the women from Everything Everywhere. You have
the women from Woman King.
King. That's
or
6
she
right
said,
there.
For that matter.
She said, Hong Chow from The Whale. And then Angela Bassett wasn't trending, but in the month of December, between me traveling here in New York and LA, she was making a big run, and all of a sudden it's been paying off. Yeah. Now she's winning. That if she gets, I said, if she gets on a ticket, that's the legacy win.
Yeah,
exactly.
I think you're right. I think that's probably what will happen for sure.
I would agree.
Yeah.
And she becomes the first Marvel winner in a Marvel movie, not in a comic book movie, but in a Marvel movie. So
yeah, I was thinking of Joaquin, but that's DC. But at the end of the day, we're approaching 30 years from What's Love Got to Do with It, and the fact that she's never got back to the plate when you've had other actresses have had 4 and 5 and 6 nominations. I've always said, Viola. It's interesting that Viola and Octavia are the only 2 Black actresses to have multiple nominations in the acting category.
Well, Angela Bassett turned down Monsters Ball. She just didn't want to go there for what Halle Berry did. And, Halle Berry goes on and wins. Whereas many people thought Angela Bassett should have won as Tina Turner. And certainly in this mindset where you play these famous people, she probably would have, but not then. They weren't voting that way then.
Also, it's a very big, histrionic, operatic performance. It's the kind of performance actors love.
Yeah. So, yeah. So there.
So, and you'll be thrilled to know that Women Talking is leading the best adapted screenplay predictions among the experts. And then Glass Onion, which is a strong contender here. And then Living, which is a Sony Pictures Classics movie that we wonder, all of us have, many of us have said in this discussion so far, have they seen it?
People really like this movie. I've spoken to lots of
the screenwriter who
really like it.
I'm now best friends with, Kashua Izagura. I have interviewed him a few times. He's been out there, believe me. He's been out there with the insiders talking, and they're so impressed with him. And he's such an articulate, nice guy who happens to be a Nobel Prize winner. and Booker winner. He is the kind of writer that writers say, "Oh my God, look at this guy," and he's writing a screenplay for the first time. Wouldn't
And
have
he's
done it without
adapting
Bill.
Kurosawa's Akira. All of these are,
Yeah.
this is a very high level of pedigree.
Very, very high level. So that's definitely going to be
And
nominated.
Sony Pictures Classics knows what they're doing.
Oh yeah.
And then The Whale is in 4th place, and then All Quiet on the Western Front is in 5th. Is that a game changer here?
Well, I think it'll get in.
I put in All Quiet. I did. I did not put in The Whale.
The Whale is a first-time screenwriter, Sam Hunter, who wrote the play. He's adapting his own play and going into a new medium. If The Whale is riding a wave here, so to speak, sorry for the pun, I think he could be swept in.
She Said is in 6th place, Top Gun in 7th, Bones and All in 8th, and then Pinocchio, which we haven't talked about yet.
I think that's possible.
I do too.
Yes. The scripters went with Pinocchio and Top Gun, so they may be higher up than your
Yeah, Writers Guild won't allow you to vote for Pinocchio because they don't count animation on it. So I would have voted for him, for Guillermo and his collaborators on that, making a whole new thing with Pinocchio. Beautiful movie. And sometimes we do see animated films in the writing categories.
Definitely.
So.
Mm-hmm. For original screenplay, Everything Everywhere is as neck and neck with Banshees of Inisherin. And then that's kind of like all of us are split between that. And then Fabelmans gets 1 vote in the 3rd place, and then Tar, Triangle Sadness, and then After Sun. Is Everything Everywhere just a lock here, or Banshees?
No, I think Banshees has a shot there too.
I do too. I think Tar has a shot, but it's harder for the whole Academy when they vote on this. Tar may be more polarizing. They may look at Everything Everywhere in this category, even if they don't for the others, and say it is certainly original screenplay.
That's true.
Is Martin the writer of Banshees?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
So that could be it could be a situation where they want him to win. They want him to win something. Where the case is they win screenplay but not director. Should he get a director nomination?
I could see that.
I could
see that too. I think it's an interesting category. It's tighter than it would be normally.
And then Babylon is in 7th. That's we had that out front stronger than we do now, our predictions collectively. But it's certainly a flashy movie, and it's Damien again, and it's Justin again, and
I don't see that happening.
There's always that movie that everybody thinks is the sight unseen is top 3, and that was Babylon at first. And then when it premiered, the buzz was just so sounding that like Netflix was like, yes, we have a shot, because they played on the same night that all of a sudden it dropped. They may still get in for a lot of behind the scenes nominations. But as far as, Margot Robbie could make a case if they really liked the movie. She was up there for Best Actress. No one's talking Diego Calva. And Brad Pitt, who I thought was pretty good, could get in, if they really like him in this role.
I like Brad Pitt a lot in it.
But SAG ensemble. I found that interesting.
Well, I think that's a no-brainer, because what is this movie about? It's about a bunch of actors and filmmaking, and SAG is a sucker for that. So
and that opening scene they got the votes from the opening scene. All those people that were in the opening scene.
Yeah.
Okay, well, let's stop with this thought, and what your perspective on it is what's nice this year is that we have finally, and the Academy has been striving this for so much, a lot of diversity, racial, women are doing strong, especially lots of women of color and race. And we have the return of the box office movies. We have Avatar and Top Gun and the rest of them are strong contenders here in lots of categories. And that's what we've always been hoping for, because we've seen this recent trend of snobism, like you see at the Critics Awards, also appear at the Oscars when you have the best pictures like Nomadland just sweeping year to year to year. Suddenly it's a lot more inclusive in many ways. What do you guys think?
I think the Oscars need to nominate all these box office movies this year or never. This is the litmus test.
Yeah, if you want ratings, at the end of the day, especially now that we have a glut of channels and streaming channels and cable, the ratings is not, no one's gonna get big ratings anymore. So you got to find a way to bring in the crowd, and the crowd wants to see the big movies. They know they want to go see Top Gun. Avatar's about to make $2 billion. That's not on people seeing it one time. You know, those are repeats. You know, so you want to, and you want some, you know, you want to, when you have 10 nominees for Best Picture, you can mix it up a bit. You know, from best, you know, from box office films to independent films like The Whale.
I think so.
And
I think it's going to be a
contingency.
much more accessible Oscars this year because of this. than it has
Hopefully,
been.
but I think it has to be. You know, the
Yeah.
studios are back. It's just a different vibe.
You definitely have three big, you know, four. If you think Elvis, which is like 280
Elvis.
million or something. I mean, it's a huge worldwide figure. You've got everything all at once, 100 million around the world. You've got Top Gun, which is rivaling Avatar. They're duking it out for top domestic box office as we speak. And Avatar. So all of those are in there. That's a lot of hits.
Not to mention Black Panther: Wakanda Forever, which got a Producers Guild
Is
nomination.
that a guaranteed?
It's not.
That's yeah, but they will get some nominations like Ruth Carter and production design.
No,
maybe
they might even win costume design again.
Yes.
Yeah.
She won
Yeah.
already.
I'm not
yeah.
sure that Black Panther gets a Best Picture nomination. That's my
And
question.
it's strong in the song too. You know, don't forget "Lift Me Up." What are all those songs? They always get nominated. It's "Lift Me Up."
Interesting.
Hold my
that
hand.
when I saw that, so Ryan
Hold
Coogler
my
is one of
hand.
the writers of "Lift Me Up," and he could get nominated, you know, for the song.
It's
Don't get me started on the songs. I'll
No.
shut up.
yeah. How
Hey,
many
all right.
songwriters does it take? You know, what's her name? Selena Gomez had 8 songwriters on that song for the documentary, and they said it's going to be ineligible because we can't do it. And they were going to hold firm. Next thing I know, it qualified with fewer than 8 writers. So they came to the table.
So any final thoughts here as we wrap up?
Nominations happening Tuesday. We'll see that we're all wrong.
You know,
You better not
at this
beat me
point
again,
right
Pete. I'm
now,
never gonna forgive you.
have you all you guys solid on your picks, or do you find yourself making a change or two in the next 2 days?
I can't do it because I said they were final. I want to make changes. But what
Yeah.
I've learned over the years is that when I fuss with it and make changes, it's always wrong.
It's
I
going to
know.
be a wash. You'll change one and not the other, and you know,
Yeah.
it
And,
might.
I'm not
see, like-
changing anything between
Yeah.
now and Tuesday.
Well,
Pete, that's happened to me every time. When I've made changes, it's 50-50. You know, it's
You say to yourself, I had him in, but I took him out. I took him out. And because we do Gold Derby, that's when it's painful, you know? 'Cause you're
Very
like,
painful.
you know, it's like you cost me the 3rd place.
But you know, the power of Gold Derby is a delightful surprise to me as the editor, because when you hear things, as I'll tell you off camera, who told us this, that they finally were screaming at Lady Gaga during the when she was up for Star is Born, and whatever they were working on together, the two of them were saying, would just take her phone away from Gaga. 6 times a day she's at Gold Derby, watching her going up and down in the Best Actress race, and it says, we can't get her work done, take her phone away.
yeah.
Oh, we'll get those calls, you know. It's like, I'm sure each one of us has gotten, have you seen the film? Because we don't see you placed our client yet on your list.
Oh,
Yeah.
no, it used to be, you know, I thought you liked us. Why do you have a 3rd and not 1st?
Right.
And I go like, no. Once very famous executive here actually took me to drinks and say, all I need is one of you to say that this particular animated film is the front runner. I said, well, I don't know who's going to say that. You know, I honestly, you couldn't say that, but it was that important, you know, just to get one mention. They think they can turn it around. So,
Well,
Hey, when you're working for the platforms you guys do, you guys have a higher voice. You know, I remember when I read your stuff on Jennifer Lopez, and all of a sudden Jennifer Lopez started rising in the ranks when you wrote that piece about Hustler.
Well, she was a contender, but and she certainly spent a lot, and she got it in some award races.
Right.
But I'll never forget. Let me tell a story that I shouldn't. Which is Chris Beecham, our managing editor, was at some. This was the Arrival, the year of that movie, right? And he was at the buffet table. Chris was, just, and Amy Adams was next to her, right behind him, right? And he didn't notice this. So he's filling his plate with whatever's at the banquet. And he turns, and Amy Adams is right there. And he goes, "Oh, hello." And she, without even saying his name, she said, or no, wait, maybe she did. She said, "Why did you drop me from 3rd to 4th place last night?"
Oh my God.
So she knew exactly what time and when that he had dropped. And Chris was all freaked out. So people are watching. And we hope you guys are watching Tuesday morning when the nominations come out, and then we'll issue the scores. And Wilson, if you kick our ass again, we're going to have to maybe just disqualify you because
there's no rhyme or reason,
Keep up the good work, everybody.
All right.
Good luck to us all.
This was fun.
Okay.
Good to see you all.